Hello, welcome to the real world. Thank you so much for joining us here on this very special episode. We're talking all about Blue Beetle and our favorite superhero origin stories. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. First, we're going to kick things off with some movie news. All right, we're kicking things off as we usually do with some movie news. First up is Prey, the Predator movie, the prequel to Predator, which was just released last year, is getting its own 4K Blu-ray release, which is really exciting for fans of physical media like me who have big collections. This is a big win because most streaming films do not get their own physical releases. That's pretty rare, and Netflix has done it a couple times and some others, but this is one that I really enjoyed, so I'm really excited to add this one to the collection. It's released on October 5th. Next up in the world of streaming, Percy Jackson is getting a Disney Plus series. We've been hearing about this for a while now, and they've officially set a release date. Finally, they've set the release date for December 20th this year, so we're looking forward to that. I'm a big fan of the movies, actually. I like the Percy Jackson movies. I haven't read the books, but I know those who are fans of the books aren't usually big fans of the movies, but they're definitely looking forward to the show. The author is involved in the series, and so yeah, definitely looking forward to that release date on Disney Plus coming up very soon. All right, another movie that's getting turned into a series is the Monsterverse. So as we know, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong was the latest film that they released in this franchise. And now they've announced Apple TV Plus is getting their own series set in this world. It's called Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and they revealed the first couple images from this week. They also announced that Kurt and his son Wyatt Russell are going to both star in the series as the same character, but at different ages. So that's kind of a cool idea. I don't know if we've ever really seen this happen before. I'm sure it's happened at one point or another in movie history, but it's pretty rare that you see a father-son duo in the same thing, playing the same character, but at two different times in his life. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That show is set to debut later this year. Next up, Taika Waititi is supposedly in talks to direct Thor 5. The fifth Thor film is gaining traction. They want to make it. Marvel wants to do it. And supposedly Taika Waititi is on board to direct. This is not official confirmation yet. Marvel has not announced this, but it is going around the internet rumor mill. I think it would be interesting if he returned. You know, I think as long as they find a cool story to come into, that would be good. I think he's a good director. I think the franchise needs a fresh voice, though. I really would prefer someone like Sam Hargrave do it. He worked with Chris Hemsworth on the Extraction films, and he has a really unique style that I think could, lend itself to Thor and go away from more of the comedic side that we've gotten over the last couple of movies and into a more kind of gritty, serious, dramatic take on the character, which I think is what the franchise needs. So time will tell what ends up actually happening, but let us know your thoughts on the next Thor movie, what you want to see happen in the comments below. Just a couple of movie anniversaries celebrating this week. Enter the Dragon, the classic Bruce Lee martial arts action movie, is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. It was released in 1973. Another great film from the very same year, also celebrating its 50th anniversary, is Westworld. This is the Michael Crichton film based on the book that he wrote. He also directed the film, and it's a really fun movie. It's, of course, now been turned into an HBO show, but the movie from the 70s with Yul Brynner and James Brolin is a really, really good, kind of fun sci-fi, sort of horror thriller almost. So definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. Check it out. All right, folks. Well, that is it for movie news this week. Make sure you comment on all your favorite news stories in the comments below. Now we're going to move into our review of the new DC movie, Blue Beetle. Joining me is Josh. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you doing this afternoon?
Doing great. Thanks for joining me. We both got a chance to see this over the weekend, so we're going to give you our spoiler-free thoughts first, and then we'll jump into spoilers in just a moment. So we'll give you a warning before we do that, but let's just jump into our spoiler-free thoughts. I thought this was a really fun origin movie. I mean, this is really just a solid film overall. I really enjoyed Jolo Mardueña. I thought he was really good in the lead role of Jaime Reyes. This is a character I've known about for years. I've been waiting for him to get his own movie. He's in the show Young Justice. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that DC animated series. He's also shows up in shows like Batman Brave and the Bold. So I've seen him in animation before. I haven't read a ton of his comics, but I'm aware of his kind of comic book background. I just thought it was a really fresh take because it is a younger character. He's a younger superhero. He's not quite a teenager. He's not like in high school necessarily, but he's a younger character. And really what sets this one apart for me was the family dynamic of him and his mother and his father, his uncle, his sister, his grandmother. They're all this one family unit living together. And I thought that was the highlight of the film. They were really endearing and really funny. And I just thought they did a great job with that. For me, overall, it was a little generic when it comes to the plot. I felt like it was, kind of this typical corporate bad guy. I felt like Susan Sarandon kind of phoned it in a little bit, honestly, in her role, even though she's a great actress. She just didn't do a whole lot to make me get to know her character or anything like that. Now, there's a secondary antagonist who I really liked, actually. He was really menacing, and he had a good role. Also, I felt like the movie was just a little too long. Even though it's just over 2 hours, I felt like it could have been cut down a little bit more just to give it a little bit of a quicker pace. But overall, I had a good time with it. I thought I had a good balance of humor and drama throughout. Really cool action scenes. I'm so glad they built that suit practically because you can tell when you're watching it that it's a real suit. And so all the effects work was really good too. Pretty good use of soundtrack. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I don't think this is a groundbreaking movie. I don't think it's one of the best of the year. But I enjoyed it while I was in the theater. So give us your spoiler-free thoughts on this one, Josh.
Yeah, I had a good time with it as well. And like you said, I really loved the theme and emphasis on the family. The score was really good. I was listening to it afterwards. It kind of gave me Spider-Verse vibes a little bit here and there. Again, yeah, the practical effects on that costume, it's fantastic looking. So just everything he does in it is amazing. And I like the versatility that, like, I don't know that much about Blue Beetle except the DC showcase short they had a while back. I really liked that. So I was already like on board with the character, especially because it's kind of like one of the lesser known ones. It kind of combines like a Spider-Man and Iron Man-esque kind of hero. Yeah, like you said, the action was really good. I did think they showed too much in the trailers. Whether that be like the humor or some of the action stuff. I think they did a little too much in the trailers, but the acting was pretty much solid. George Lopez and the actress who plays Nana, Adriana Barraza, they were both really good. And someone made the point I saw online that that they were like, oh, they stole every scene they were in. And I pretty much agree with that. They were pretty good scene stealers. And just the more I think about this movie, the more I like it. And like you said, it's not like groundbreaking, kind of a generic plot a little bit here and there as far as like the superhero good guy versus bad guy thread. But I don't know. I really had a good time and I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, let's get into some spoilers. Okay, so great. That was our spoiler-free review. Now we're going to get into some spoilers, some specifics of the plot. So if you have not seen it, this is your spoiler alert. Click away, go down to the timestamps below. You can jump straight to our top 5 superhero origin movies, which is our main topic today. But we did want to get into spoilers since we both got a chance to see it. So first of all, I like opening credits in movies. Movies don't do that a whole lot anymore. And so it's cool to see a movie that does opening credits, but utilizes it in a cool way. And the other movie that I thought of was The Incredible Hulk. Uses their opening credits to kind of show you his origin. And this sort of does, it doesn't show the origin of our main character, Jaime Reyes, but it shows the history of the Blue Beetle and the Scarab and what it is and what it does and that all the stuff with Ted Cord. I thought that was really smart. And so I liked that whole opening. I thought that was well utilized. We mentioned the action. I really like the use of the alien tech. We see him use a lot of different abilities here. that are very familiar to comic book fans, right? So like the shields he uses, the wings. There's a little like I think they call it the staple gun, where he's like shooting staples that like
Oh yeah.
attach people to things. That was
Mhm.
really well utilized. So I liked seeing all of that. The sonic cannons. I mean, there's just several things from the comics that they utilized very well,
Mm.
which was a lot
Okay.
of fun. We both mentioned the comedy, the family and getting to know them and their kind of backstory. The eccentric uncle George Lopez is great. He's just got such a big personality, and you really
Mhm.
like him.
Yeah.
The one I was most surprised by was the grandmother. The actress you mentioned did such a great job playing this role. She's just kind of in the background initially, and then
Yeah.
she kind of starts playing a bigger role as the movie progresses, which I totally caught me off guard. Did not
Mhm.
expect that at all. Her whole backstory was really fun to kind of explore, and just unexpected. So I really enjoyed that. The villain. I wanted to mention the secondary kind of villain who's in the suit. Omak, which is
Yeah.
another kind of comic book thing that they drew on. I thought that was really well done, and him, he's pretty menacing. He's like a man of few words. He doesn't say a lot. He just kind of looks very, terrifying in the background through a lot of the scenes. But when they
Mhm.
got into his backstory, when we actually learned like where he came from, how this happened to him, that was really surprising and impactful. I thought that was really
Yeah.
well done.
I thought
So I
so too.
enjoyed that as well. I guess the last thing I really wanted to mention as far as spoilers go was, of course, the death of his father, which I thought was so well handled. I think a lot of
Mhm.
movies, in the genre now, they tend to go for the joke a little too often, and even when like a big, dramatic event happens, they can kind of just try to go back into the comedy too quickly. I feel like, whereas this one
Yeah.
really let it sit with you, and it really let the emotion just play out. And the way they did it, the way they shot it with kind of this montage, the way they edited it together, just very effective. So again, really good filmmaking here. The director, I think his name is Angel Soto. He's really talented. I can't wait to see what he does next if he does end up doing a sequel to this. And we'll talk about the sequel stuff in a second too, because they do kind of
Yeah.
set that up. But give me your any spoiler thoughts you wanted to share.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to me was, well, like you said with the before I get to that, before you said with the opening credits, I thought of Kong Skull Island, because they kind of do the same thing where they like show a history, and I like any movie that does that, like you said too, because it builds this mythos, this like era of mystery, like, oh, what happened, and like, it kind of gets you into the lore in like a really cool way, where you're like, oh, you're intrigued. And then I guess there's more than one Blue Beetle or beetle, scarab, whatever, because they showed like a bunch of different colors going off. I was just learning a little bit. I guess the Reach, whoever the Reach are, they made them and sent them out. So I guess maybe in a sequel we'll see others, since they very clearly just showed that on screen. They didn't have to if they weren't going to do anything with it, I suppose, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably where they're going to go. There's kind of two ways they could go, or they could, I guess, do both. But yeah, one is that the Reach, which we don't even hear them referenced really. We kind of just
Mm-hmm.
see that visual of all the different, colored scarabs going out. So yeah, there's a green beetle, there's a red beetle, there's a black beetle, there's all kinds of different
Mm.
beetle characters out there. Some of them from different planets, all kinds of different things. So yeah, it's definitely a way that they can open up the world if they wanted to do that in a sequel, which I think would be great. The other thing, obviously, is Ted Cord, as we learn in the
Yeah.
post-credit scene, is still alive out there somewhere. So I don't know where he is. I don't really have a whole lot of insight into that. But I think that could be an effective way to go too, is exploring his character, where he's been, what he's been
Mm.
doing, how they bring him back to our world. I don't know. I think that could be a fun avenue as well.
I liked that they left that mystery the whole time. Like, did he go missing? Like, did Victoria? Yeah, it was like, did she kill him? Did she have him
Right.
killed? Or and then the daughter seems to think that he, like, the way that conversation played out, I really liked, because it was very like, then he left. Like,
Right.
because they were like, oh, he would go away for a couple of days and then he was like gone. So it kind of implied that he was gone, he wasn't killed. So I
Hmm.
liked they like kept our suspense until the very end, literally, and then said that he was still alive. And whoever was talking, I don't know. That was another mystery too. Is like, who's this other person?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I know a lot of people want Jason Sudeikis to play him. I don't know why specifically, but I think he would be a
hmm,
fun choice for
I
Ted Cord.
I think that would be really cool.
From Ted Lasso to
Um,
Ted Cord.
yeah, I did notice at the end too that they did it in the mid-credit scene and earlier when we first go into the Beetle Cave or whatever it's really called. I don't know. They focus on the mannequin without a suit, with a pillow tied around it or something. Like what was up with that? She was looking at it, so it was like, okay, her dad maybe. And then they showed it at the end, so it was like maybe that's the suit he was wearing when he disappeared. I'm not sure what was. Do you have any comic book insight into that?
My thought was that must be the one he's wearing now. That was my only consideration. Although I've heard people speculating online, because these two characters interact a lot in the comics, that it could be Booster Gold, who's kind of like his friend sidekick type character, who's a character like from the future, and he has his own whole backstory. But my thought was that it was just the suit that Ted Cord is wearing now.
Yeah.
And that's why she kept looking at it, because she's kind of missing him. But I'm not sure.
That would be interesting. It wouldn't really make, I mean, I don't know, but it seems like it wouldn't make as much sense if it was Booster Gold for her to be looking at it like that. Right. But that would be a really cool way to backdoor pilot, so to speak, that character. And I feel like James Gunn would be all about doing that. So that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. We already know we're getting a Booster Gold show. So.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yeah, you did tell me about that before. I don't know if the Beetle ship has an actual name, but that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
that was one of the coolest parts of the movie. And I'm glad they kept that completely, except for like the shots of inside the ship. I'm glad they kept that out of the trailers.
Yes.
Because that was so cool. Like to me, that puts Batman's version or the Batcrawler or whatever that thing is to shame. Like that thing was already kind of ineffective, but this thing was way cooler.
Yeah.
All the different stuff it can do, flying and crawling and all that. But yeah, the biggest thing to me that really stood out in the film that I want to talk about spoiler wise was like at the very end, because the whole time the fight with Carapax, the whole time he's like, no, don't kill, don't kill, don't kill. And then at the very end, like he goes to kill. And usually I don't like it when in movies, when like a good upstanding hero makes the wrong choice and does something really bad, particularly murder.
Right.
So I probably wouldn't have liked it if he did kill Carapax, but that would have been like super unexpected and like a radical choice for them to do that. So I probably would have liked it for that reason, but overall, no. But I liked this scene because it like flips. She stops him, Khajiit. Which I had to look up some of these. I'm like, I don't know. They said it so fast. I don't know what the words are. But she stops him. Yeah. And I love that because just in that moment, you just see like all of his pain and anguish and grief and sorrow and everything going in that moment. And that's what's powering his attack. And then like she stops him and like just both giving advice and then showing him Carapax's story just kind of changes it. And then, he releases that grief and anguish and everything through stabbing the ground. Right. I don't know. It's just really cool scene. I like that if they're going to do something, like someone stops them, and I don't know. It was just really impactful and emotional scene.
Yeah, it was a unique way to do it, which I thought was effective too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it would that's so much more powerful than just be like, okay, I decide not to in the moment. Right. But because he wanted to, like you have that character development moment as well, which was really cool.
Cool, great stuff. Well, check out Blue Beetle in theaters now if you have not already. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. You can check out our reviews on Letterboxd. We're both on Letterboxd. I'll leave those links in the description below as well. But now it's time to get into, since we're talking about Blue Beetle superhero origin movie, we are talking about our favorite top 5 superhero origin movies of all time. Before we get into our list, we just wanted to talk about what is a superhero origin movie. How did we come up with these lists? Because there's a lot of different options, a lot of ways you can go with it. So first of all, superhero origin movies, really pretty simple. It's just the story of how someone becomes a superpowered or highly skilled hero to protect others and battles evil, essentially, is kind of the definition that I came up with. I tried to, with my picks, focus in on one character. There's all kinds of like team up movies, like how did the Avengers become the Avengers? That's a thing. The X-Men, Justice League, Guardians of the Galaxy, all those are really fun. But I decided just to focus on solo superhero movies focused in on one character. I noticed that, a lot of superhero movies start with the superhero kind of already in action. There's maybe a brief prologue or, just dialogue or a flashback to kind of cover the origin story. Whereas I wanted the picks to really focus in on how the character became the superhero. That's kind of what I was gearing my whole list towards. So I wanted to focus on the ones which showed us through the narrative, of the film itself, showing us how this person became a superhero. So that's kind of my thought process going into it. Josh, kind of what are your thoughts on this?
I kind of went with same kind of thing you said, whereas like more focus on the individual and like in particular a more full-fledged origin story. I mean, I have a couple ones that were just like the opening scenes, the beginning of the movie kind of thing in my honorable mentions, but I kind of wanted to, for the top five, pick the ones that most stood out to me as far as a superhero origin film, and then the ones that meant a lot or were like impactful emotionally.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get started now with our honorable mentions, which I do have several. So I'll kick us off here with The Shadow. The Shadow is a movie I really enjoy from the 90s. It's kind of like a cheesy throwback to like 30s adventure serial type stuff. Shadow is a really old comic book character played here by Alec Baldwin. It's got Ian McKellen in it. And a few other really good actors. It's just got a cool kind of noir style. It's a really interesting film, very different from a lot of our typical big budget blockbuster comic book movies that we get today. But it's one that I thoroughly enjoy, and so had to mention that one. It's pretty different origin story. I'll also mention The Phantom. This one is really fun. It's got a cool kind of like, I'd call it like Batman meets Indiana Jones meets Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm not saying it's as good as any of that, but to me, it's a ton of fun. And Billy Zane plays the lead role. Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it. It's got a fun kind of just vibe to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And it's just got a lot of cool practical effects, locations, action. So it's a lot of fun. You don't really get in depth on his origin story. You kind of like get that prologue, kind of sets it up, and then you kind of learn more about him like through dialogue as the movie goes on. So it's kind of a not as much of an origin story as I would like. I'll mention those two. You go ahead and give me a couple of yours.
I'll start with ones that aren't movies. I was going to mention Netflix's Daredevil, now on Disney Plus. Has like, as far as television goes, that's one of the best, I think, origin stories.
Oh yeah.
The Cape was another one that was kind of like a lesser known. It only had like, I think like one season or something, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
It had that like circus and like mystery and smoke and mirrors kind of thing,
Right.
Which was really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty
And
fun.
then the DC Showcase short, Command E, The Last Boy on Earth.
Yes.
That one, that's probably like one of my favorite of the DC Showcase. And it was like so cool. As soon as it was over, I was like, no, just keep going. I wanted a full movie of it, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, movie wise, like you mentioned, a couple of the ones that were intros or in the opening. I really liked the artful take on Bruce Wayne, Batman's origin on Batman v Superman. Just the Zack Snyder style of that retelling, and I think that was opening credits as well. Actually,
it was.
So another good use of opening credits.
For sure.
And then the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine was really cool, where you see him like going through the Civil War and like all that stuff. Like, I mean, to me, that's the best part of the movie. It's just the beginning.
Right.
But yeah, those is a couple of the more random ones I had, I guess.
Great. Yeah, those are good picks. Like I said, Incredible Hulk does that well, which I like a lot. All right, a couple more I've got to mention here. Batman Year One. This is an animated DC movie based on the comic of the same name by Frank Miller. And it's a really good adaptation. It's really solid. It's got Ben McKenzie and Bryan Cranston as Batman and Gordon. It's really a parallel story of both of those characters. How Gordon first arrives in Gotham and becomes a police officer there, and how Bruce Wayne is taking on this mantle of Batman. And so it's really fun. It's unique, a unique take on it. It's very gritty, very dark, but definitely worth checking out. The comic. And if you don't have time for the comic, then check out the movie. It's a good adaptation. Also wanted to mention another DC animated film, a recent one called Green Lantern: Beware My Power. This is about Jon Stewart's origin. So most people are used to Hal Jordan, the Ryan Reynolds movie, and all that. DC Animation blows that out of the water they have their own Hal Jordan movie that I'm going to mention in a minute, but the Jon Stewart one's also very good. At this point in the DC universe, the Justice League is already established. So he kind of comes into it. They kind of come into his story. It's really intriguing, interesting, sci-fi kind of storytelling. Had to mention, of course, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which I think is a classic. I also really like The Amazing Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield is really good in that. And so I wanted to mention both of those, as well as Shazam, which is, I think, a really cool, kind of unique way into a superhero story, a teenage superhero. It's a foster kid, foster family. So it's just got unique things about it that I really enjoy. So I wanted to mention those as well. Go ahead and give me a couple more of yours, Josh.
Yeah, I also had The Amazing Spider-Man. A kind of a weird one, I guess I'd throw out is Megamind. Which in that one, it's like he starts as a villain, but it's how he becomes the hero.
Right.
And that movie's just good for its unique spin on that whole thing. Anyway, I really liked that.
Yeah, me too.
I'd mention Blue Beetle,
Sure.
Aquaman, Thor, Shang-Chi, Wonder Woman. All these are pretty good. I'd mentioned X-Men First Class, and I know we're kind of more focusing on individuals, but in this one, I would say it's really about Charles, Raven, and Eric. And just the three of their origin story is really powerful in this and all the subsequent films on the prequel line as well.
Right, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned Thor. I had to bring up Thor as well because I really like that first Thor movie. I think it's very underrated. I think Kenneth Branagh did a great job bringing like a kind of Shakespearean feel to it. And Tom Hiddleston, of course, is wonderful. Hemsworth is great. It's got a great kind of fish out of water story with him and Jane, and it's really about a superhero who kind of like becomes human and like has to be humbled and and become the hero he's meant to be. So that's just another kind of unique origin story. He's kind of already got all the superpowers when we need him, but he hasn't really become the hero yet. So that's a fun one. And yeah, you mentioned Wonder Woman as well. This was really close to making it into the top 5 for me. World War I setting. Chris Pine is so great. Gal Gadot is wonderful. Has so many great action sequences in it. Great characters, great storytelling all around. Patty Jenkins did a great job with this. So yeah, I had to mention that one. Just a couple more here. Superman Man of Tomorrow. This is the new DC animated, it's called the Tomorrowverse because this is called Man of Tomorrow. And this is the first one that kicked it off. It's a really fun, unique, modern kind of Superman origin. It's got Lobo and Parasite, Martian Manhunter shows up in it. Good mix of characters, really good voice acting. And I really, really enjoy this one a lot. So I had to bring that one up. And then the last DC animated one, for the honorable mentions, is what I mentioned before, Green Lantern First Flight, which is Hal Jordan's origin, far better than the live action version. It's so good. Christopher Maloney voices Hal Jordan. It's got Victor Garber as Sinestro. Just a great sci-fi space cop, like buddy cop movie in space, basically is what it is. And so really well done. Super great visuals and action scenes, and just really good storytelling. So had to bring that one up as well. Go ahead and give me do you have any more on your list?
Yeah, just a couple other ones. I need to watch both those last two you mentioned again.
Yeah.
Because I remember I liked First Flight the first time, and I didn't super care for the Man of Tomorrow.
Okay.
But I think I might, like you said, it's kind of a modern take, and my expectations, like, I just need to see it again, especially now that there's more of the Tomorrowverse I have to go through, like the new Green Lantern movie you mentioned.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I guess the other last three I would mention, or four actually, The Mask of Zorro, Iron Man, The Rocketeer, and Man of Steel.
Excellent.
So
great.
Some of the heavy hitters there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last couple for me are the original Superman, which is one of my favorite movies ever made. I just think it's spectacular on every level. It doesn't really, what I ultimately came down on was it doesn't really give us a Superman origin. It's like you see him as a baby, you see him as a teenager, he goes off to the fortress, and then he shows up in Metropolis and he's Superman. So it's not really telling us how he became Superman, like it kind of is, but we don't really get to see him like learning how to be a superhero necessarily in this one, like we do in Man of Tomorrow and some other Superman movies. So yeah, I had to bring that one up though. Really enjoy it. As you mentioned, Iron Man. This was like, oh man, I really wanted it to be in the top 5. It just barely missed it. As we know, Robert Downey Jr. is just perfect casting. The entire cast is great. I like how Favreau used practical and digital effects. A lot of improv. The script wasn't even complete when they started shooting.
Oh wow!
So it's kind of amazing that it turned out as well as it did. Great action sequences. Yeah, just super cool stuff. A great origin story for a character that I definitely had to bring up. And then the other last MCU one I had to mention was Ant-Man, which I think is another great origin story for that character. Who's, again, it's kind of an interesting thing where Ant-Man was this character. Hank Pym had the mantle, and then he's handing it down to this, younger character. So it's a unique kind of origin story. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. You ready to jump in the top 5?
Sure.
Okay, great. My first pick is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, released December 14th, 2018. $90 million budget, ended up grossing $384 million, huge hit for Sony Animation. Runtime of 1 hour and 57 minutes. 3 directors, Peter Ramsey, Bob Persichetti, and Rodney Rothman all directed this movie. And here we're getting 7 origin stories in one. I mean, it's like the most you could bang for your buck, I guess you could say. It's so good. All the characters are so well defined and well acted. The voice cast is spectacular. Nicolas Cage is great as Spider-Man Noir. He's my favorite. I want him to have his own movie. I know they're talking about doing a series, I think, with him, which would be fun. Of course, Jake Johnson is wonderful as Peter B. Parker. And then Haley Steinfeld, of course, is Spider-Gwen, and Shameik Moore playing Miles Morales here, who just has such a unique origin. He's a much younger character. He's got this really interesting family dynamic with his parents. It's so well written. It has a great balance of humor and heart, some big twists in there. Sympathetic villain as well. Kingpin and Prowler are both great. And so, yeah, I had to mention that one because I had to make the list. Rewatching it went up even higher in my ranking. It wasn't in the top 5 initially until I rewatched it recently, but it just gets better every viewing, it seems. So yeah, this one just has such, a unique animation style too. I really like how they kind of tried to push the envelope with the animation. It was really unique and feels like a comic book. You got the thought bubbles and all kinds of different things popping up. You can just do so much in animation that you can't do in live action. So that's why I think this one stands kind of above the rest. Kinetic pacing and action, just super well done. It's got, of course, a wonderful soundtrack, and it's on its way now to being one of the best trilogies in comic books as well. The second film was almost as good as the first one, I think. I've only seen it once, so I can't say it's better, but it's definitely a worthy sequel. So yeah, huge fan of Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's the best Spider-Man origin we've had on screen. Honestly, I really do. I think it's really well done. So, any thoughts on Spider-Verse?
I do, but it's somewhere else in my list, so I'll come back to it.
Gotcha. Great. Okay, give us your number 5.
All right, so my number 5, and Spider-Verse was actually until today, it was at number 5. So I literally just swapped it, or was going to be number 5, I should say. But my number 5 is Captain America: The First Avenger. And I think this is definitely kind of like Thor. A lot of these early ones, they're very underrated. I feel like you forget how good they are. And definitely that was the case with Thor. And then the last time I saw this one, I would say that's the case with this one too. And I know you really like it. I know there's people that really like it, but I like when it first came out, I don't know, it was amidst everything else, it was like good, not great is kind of where I let it settle. But like upon rewatches, it's like, no, this is like a fantastic movie. I mean, the main reason I picked it again was like the more emotional or impactful reason side of my reasoning. So in this case, the main part of it was just his self-sacrificing attitude and his character. And you see that most in the grenade scene, and that's like the standout scene in my mind. Both that and then the original "I Can Do This All Day" scene as being like really, really impactful and powerful. I guess this is sort of a unique one because he is the hero the entire time, but he's not a superhero. Like he becomes super a little later. So I guess there's a little a different spin there. Whereas like Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man, let's say he isn't the hero, gets superpowers, and then also still isn't the hero, and then becomes the hero at the end. So there's like interesting arcs in these. But in this one, yeah, he's like the stand-up guy. I'm gonna do the right thing no matter what. The whole movie, and then just even more so with the powers when he's able to do good, and facing off against Red Skull, like the foil to him in every way, is really cool. The effects work for that as well. It's just a really good story for Captain America's origin, and then culminating in like bringing him into the modern MCU world with like the freeze and everything, which I know is like classic Captain America. Actually, I don't know the comics very well for pretty much anything, so it would be interesting to see how much this varies from Captain America's origin story. I know obviously the end is the same, but and I know it was in World War II, but yeah, even the World War II setting is fantastic. And Peggy Carter and I forget his colonel or general.
Yeah,
Tommy Lee Jones's character.
Yeah.
Yes, I love his character so much.
It's great.
The humor is so great, and just the three of them, their banter and back and forth and everything. Him, Peggy, and Steve is really great, and it's just a solid origin story, a solid intro to the character.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's great. The setting, like you said, helps it set it apart. I also really like Stanley Tucci as Dr. Erskine. He's such a great character, and he really has an impact on Steve, and he's the one that really believes in him, and that whole thing. So yeah, really, really great movie. This is my favorite Marvel movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's one of the most rewatchable ones. It's just tons of fun. The relationship between Steve and Peggy is great. I think it's the best romance of the MCU.
I'd agree, actually.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's why Endgame ends on them,
Yeah.
I mean, it's because of this movie. Set all
it's
that
just
up
so sweet and innocent and pure.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, excellent choice. All right, moving on to my number 4, which is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So Batman Mask of the Phantasm is part of the DC animated universe, okay? So these are the series that I grew up with in the 90s. This series started in 92. It ran all the way through the 2000s with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I didn't miss an episode. I mean, this was like, prioritized viewing every, Saturday morning or whatever they play. So Bruce Timm created this whole kind of universe with guys like Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, Eric Radomski, who co-directed Mask of the Phantasm. I have this is the complete animated series, which includes Mask of the Phantasm as a kind of like a bonus disc. So yeah, it's just really, really interesting because this movie released in 93, so a year after the series debuted, it got really popular. Of course, the Tim Burton Batman movies were both very popular at this point. And so Warner Brothers commissioned them to make this animated take on Batman for the theaters. And it was released Christmas Day, 1993, budget of $6 million, only grossed $5.6 million. So it actually didn't do very well at all. But over time, it's gained a cult following, and now it's hailed as one of the best Batman movies ever. I would say it is the best Batman movie I've ever seen. I think it really just comes down to the writing and the voice acting is what's so strong here. They really do a great job. Kevin Conroy plays Batman, played him throughout the animated series. He has such a great take on both Bruce Wayne and Batman, differentiates them very well while really helping us get to know both sides of this character. Dana Delany is in this one as well. She would later go on to actually voice Lois Lane in the Superman animated series. Efren Zimbalist Jr. plays Alfred, played him throughout the entire animated series as well. And then, of course, Mark Hamill as Joker, who, has become now iconic almost equally as Luke Skywalker now as Joker. It's rare that an actor gets two big roles like that, especially a hero and a villain, such opposite characters.
That's true.
So it just shows you his range as an actor, which is pretty incredible. But he's really the secondary antagonist here. This is called Mask of the Phantasm because Phantasm is this character that's introduced, not from the comics. It was an original character, original
Oh, wow.
storyline they produced for this movie, and
Wow.
they did a great job with it. So this is really it starts off with him already as Batman, but throughout the film we're getting extended flashbacks on how Bruce Wayne became Batman. We're getting to see him, like, wearing the leather jacket and the ski mask, before he has the bat suit, fighting crime on the streets, kind of messing up and then kind of trying to learn from his mistakes and that whole thing. So all that's really well done. He's got this relationship with this woman played by Dana Delany, who I mentioned before, Andrea Beaumont. And it's really about their relationship and how Bruce actually is willing to give up his pledge to fight crime in Gotham for this woman who he's fallen in love with and wants to settle down with. And so you kind of go through their whole relationship, how that falls apart, while you're also covering this kind of mystery story in the present as well. And it's just really well done. It's the tragedy of Batman is that the fight against crime can never be complete. It's never over. Right? So he can never really settle down as much as he wants to. And so it really covers all that very well. It's very emotional. It's very operatic. Actually, the opening musical number is this kind of chorus of singing this kind of opera, and you're kind of getting it's a fully CG opening with the cityscape of Gotham. And the way they designed Gotham here, it's so unique. It has this great Art Deco style. You've got, all the blimps and the spotlights down on the city, and like just such a unique look for Gotham that I think is very specific and really stands out. You get a little bit with Commissioner Gordon in here as well as Detective Harvey Bullock, who both play big roles in the animated series. Both are really great characters. You get the origin of the Batmobile. He uses the bat wing in this. He uses all of his, typical Batman gadgets, batarangs and grapple guns and all that stuff. So you get to just see kind of the full breadth of the character here. I feel like you really can get to know Batman. If someone's never seen Batman, this is what I would show them first. Really? This is really, I think, the best introduction to the character, and just a really well done movie. It's got a great ending. It's got just really, it just, again, it kind of stands out among the rest of the Batman movies for its look, for its the whole kind of feel to it. It's darker for an animated movie. It's rated PG, but it's still darker than I think most audiences would be used to for an animated Batman movie. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't. I think it's on Max right now. I think it's streaming there. I got to see it in theaters for the 30th anniversary. Oh, cool. Which was tons of fun. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. Have you seen this one?
I have not. Okay. How long is it?
It's only an hour and 18 minutes.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering. Because something like this, they could have made a lot longer, but like that sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like there's so much in this movie.
Yeah. Very economical storytelling. Very well paced, well edited, well written. Yeah.
I guess my question with it was like, I feel like I need to watch the show or part of it. I guess to see when it came out chronologically. But like you said, like that was what you would show someone who's never done anything with Batman. So it was like, oh, I guess I don't have any excuse to. I don't need to see anything else first. I can just step right into it.
You can, which is good. Definitely. This would be a great introduction to the series. It does take place, I think, like halfway through season 2, maybe, or something like that. I can't exactly remember where, but yeah, it doesn't matter really if you've seen the show or not. You can jump in.
And because, like you said, it has an original villain that's not from the comics. Right. Just that alone, the fact that they were able to do that, and then it's this level of cult following, etc., speaks volumes of the filmmaking quality.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. All right, give us your number 4, Josh.
So my number 4 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Nice. So that's where that one landed. Great. Yeah. So just to add on to what you said there, I think kind of like what you said, it's like the ultimate superheroes origin story, and that's like I just love everything about this movie, and that's one of the things that they did so well was like it's so packed full of characters and origin stories, and every time they do the comic thing and they flip through, it's like it's so cool and engaging. You're like, oh, another one, I get to learn about another hero, but it doesn't feel clogged at all. It doesn't feel bloated. So I don't know how they did that, but usually films suffer from things like that if they try to do that many characters. But they did a great job with that. And of course, Miles's own individual story. I didn't even realize until the second movie that Uncle Ben, or not Uncle Ben, but the Uncle Ben archetype is in his uncle and as Prowler or whatever. And I was like, when they brought that up in the second movie, I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that. However many years later until that one came out. But just the whole story with him, and you just see the character progression in him up until like any with his powers, with the invisibility and typifying that like kind of like both in his personal life and as Spider-Man, that uncertainty or lack of confidence in himself and who he is. Like he is kind of, at least in his personal life, he is kind of confident in himself, but not about his place in the world. And so those kind of, that and Spider-Man kind of merge together in that incredible leap off the building scene where he just like I know who I am and I'm Spider-Man, and then his comic comes on there. It's just these movies are so good.
Yeah, he makes his own suit and the whole deal.
Yes. As soon as that third movie hits, it's probably going to be instant one of the best trilogies. Yeah, so I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, great stuff. Awesome. All right, let's move on to number threes. My number 3 is The Mask of Zorro. The Mask of Zorro. Man, this is a movie I've watched innumerable times. I mean, over the years, it's one that I've enjoyed so many times. Released July 17th, 1998. Original release date was December of 97. It was going to come out the same weekend as Titanic, and the studio wisely moved it.
Good choice.
Very wisely, yeah. So it's got a budget of 95 million, grossed over 250 million worldwide, runtime of 2 hours 17 minutes. This was written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, who ended up writing Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay, I'm like, I know the Ted Elliott name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
They're a writing duo, and they wrote this and then went on to write Pirates, which makes sense because it has kind of similar vibes. This went through a long development process. I got to watch the movie with the commentary for the first time this weekend, and it's directed by Martin Campbell, who people know as director of GoldenEye and Casino Royale and several other really good movies that I like. But he was not the first director; he was actually the third director to come on board as they were developing this throughout the 1990s. Steven Spielberg is the executive producer here, so he was heavily involved in the entire.
I thought you were going to say he was going to be one of the directors.
No, yeah. No,
I was like, whoa.
He was tied up with other things. He couldn't direct, but he produced it. He was very involved. And the second director that came on board was Robert Rodriguez, who I'm a big fan of. Spy Kids and Desperado. He just come off Desperado, and he's the one that cast Antonio Banderas, who starred in Desperado for him. And so, he ended up dropping out due to budgetary reasons and scheduling conflicts and stuff like that. But Banderas is just excellent casting here. As well as the entire cast: Catherine Zeta-Jones, Anthony Hopkins, Stuart Wilson, and Matthew Leisher. All just play their roles so well. They're very, very well played. I really like this because you really get a character that opening sequence who is a fanboy of Zorro, who becomes Zorro, right? It's like that childhood fantasy come to life, in such a fun way. And it's great. I mean, we get, the whole opening introduction to Zorro and what he's all about. And then we flash forward, 20 years, and we catch up with these two young kids who are now these kind of like bounty hunters, and one of the brothers is murdered, and so the other brother's kind of on this revenge mission, as is the original Zorro himself, played by Anthony Hopkins. He's, his house was burned down and his daughter was taken away from him, his wife was murdered. So they're both kind of on these parallel revenge missions, if you will, and they end up crossing paths. And that's what kind of ends up happening is, the older Zorro, he's kind of too old to kind of be in this game and do this thing anymore. So he sees this younger guy who he can kind of use to exact his revenge. And so it's kind of a relationship that develops over the course of the movie where they're kind of just using each other for their own personal interests, but end up really becoming kind of a father and son dynamic there. Really love the training sequences. They're so well done. That's always fun to see the hero kind of learning to be the hero. You know, he can't at all fight with a sword initially, you know, and kind of seeing that development over time is just really fun. So all that stuff is very well shot and edited together. I like seeing, you know, a hero get better at what he does throughout the movie, and that definitely happens here. Really good chemistry, again, between Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. They just are so involved with one another, so romantic. The dance sequence they have is like one of the best dance sequences ever in movies. So all of that is played really well. I think that the fight choreography in general, just, you know, the sword fighting, these, you know, big action sequences, big explosion. I mean, all kinds of big action is going on here. And this is, you know, really before everything went like full CGI, right? So a lot of practical effects, practical stunt work. There's a scene where Zorro's riding on a horse and there's like 5 guys chasing him on their horses, and he's like jumping on top of horses and on other guys' horses, and he's like standing on 2 horses at once. And it's just crazy to watch, and knowing that someone's really doing that stuff. It's not on a green screen. It's not like on some stage somewhere. It's really on a location, and they're just shooting a guy do all this stuff. So it's just incredible to watch now, especially now that movies have become so kind of CG heavy, which is kind of disappointing for me. It can work, it has its place, but I just really like seeing it done for real. I think that adds a lot to the movie, really puts you in the movie, keeps you engaged more. So this is just kind of a great classic swashbuckling action adventure, plenty of romance, plenty of humor. You know, there's really good use of comedy here. A lot of it, they said, I was listening to the commentary, Antonio Banderas would come up with a lot of it on his own, which is really fun to hear. You can tell like they just had a good time making the movie, which is always great. And that's balanced out with some, you know, intense drama. I mean, there's some really intense moments here as well, some kind of scary moments. So it's all just a well-balanced film. I feel like the villains are very easy to hate. You know, you really dislike them for the things that they're doing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so it's just really well done. And I like that this one too is one of these kind of like Ant-Man, a passing the torch movie, right? So it's like there was a Zorro, he kind of retired, and then now there's some more new Zorro that he's kind of training him to become. So I just like that whole idea. It's a quasi sequel to The Mark of Zorro, which is from 1940. This is kind of just about how this kind of guy becomes Zorro, this kind of wealthy guy, ends up taking on injustice. And so, yeah, you can kind of consider it a sequel in a way.
Like Anthony Hopkins' character is the through line.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, so that would kind of be like his origin. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen those. But yeah, that's my number 3.
I absolutely love this movie. It's so good, and just everything you said about it. Yes, again. So I don't have a ton of things to say except that it is a fantastic film, and like you said, every actor hits it out of the park. I wish more things, like you said, were done practically, because it just makes it that much cooler, because, you know, it, like you said, it actually happened. You know, it actually happened somewhere. Somehow they made it happen. Yeah. And like filmmakers nowadays that do stuff like that, like Nolan, get like acclaim and respect for that. So it's like, why don't more people, you think more, like people are excited to go see those movies. You think that would be a hint maybe to the studios. I don't know.
Yeah, it's harder. It takes more time, more effort, you know, and people want to churn movies out quick. But yeah, when you spend your time on it, it definitely pays off. Great. Give us your number 3.
So my number 3 is going to be Unbreakable, the M. Night Shyamalan film from, I think, 2000.
Yep.
This one, I knew I liked it, but watching it again a couple weeks ago, it just like, I don't know, just like totally came alive to me as like, this is like, if I thought it was this good originally, I totally forgot, because it's amazing. Yeah, I was super impressed this time. The camera work is incredible. Cinematographer is Eduardo Serra, and he does a marvelous job. There's a bunch of wonders throughout the film, which I didn't even realize until I was watching some of the bonus features afterwards. I think they said there's like 30 of them in the film. I was like, holy cow. But I love all the camera angles. There's so many things done through like reflections or like in between seats or like rail in between railings. Like there's so much creative camera work here. James Newton Howard gives another solid score. Everyone's performances are great too, especially it was funny because when I was thinking about the movie as I was watching it this past time, I thought Robin Wright's character was like, I thought it was like almost a cameo role from what I could remember. It was like, oh, she just has like one scene where he's talking to her in the kitchen or something, and then that's the last you see of her. But no, she doesn't like the whole movie.
Yeah.
So I totally forgot about that. But she did a great job. Her and Spencer Treat Clark as their son, I think, are the two standouts. I really liked as like because this is before the MCU. This is before there's like a couple. I think there was a couple superhero movies at this point, but obviously the original Batman's. But this is before like the MCU formula and like what we think of now as a superhero film. Like this is before all that, so it's cool to see how M. Night does it and wrote it, and the writing is incredible. I think he often has really good ideas and sometimes doesn't execute them well, but this one was executed, I think, perfectly. Everything about the pacing and the writing, overall the story, but even of David Dunn with Bruce Willis's character for like how he becomes the hero, and he's sort of the reluctant hero. He doesn't want to. He doesn't quite believe it all. And so just seeing how that all unfolds, and not only just like what we learn but about him and about his past and things like that, but just how he's seeing him kind of like come into it as well is really cool. And then of course at the very end, when he becomes the hero and puts on the suit, if you will, that was really cool. And it's like out of all the superhero films or just superheroes in general, I think this is one of the ones that is like the most believable, like it could actually happen. And not like, I mean, I guess because it's still technically like powers, if you will. But I mean, as far as like, if this guy, a random Joe Schmo, got powers, this is kind of like how it actually go. So I think they did a really good job with that. And I really liked I didn't notice this either until I was watching the bonus features. They talked about the color palette, which I noticed it later in Glass. And they talked about it there as well. But David Dunn's character, his color palette and everything in his world kind of starts out in the more cool colors and then turns into the warm colors as he becomes the hero. And then Glass is the opposite. He starts out a little warmer and then goes into the cool colors as he becomes the villain. So just really great filmmaking techniques. Like I said, with the camera work and everything going on here, like on every level. This is an amazing movie. And it's just really cool to see like a unique take on a superhero origin. And it really only becomes the hero at like the very end.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I remember watching interviews with M. Night when he was talking about this. I guess it was on the Blu-ray I have. He really sought out to make a superhero origin where it's really just like the first act of a superhero movie. It's like just that part of the movie is the whole movie. So I really like this too. It's very clever. It's very unique. Like you're saying, just very well thought out. The use of color, like you're saying, and every shot is very purposeful. You can tell. I think this is Bruce Willis' best movie. I think it's his best performance. It's so unique for him. Everyone knows him as John McClane, like the kind of wisecracking, type guy. And this is a very understated performance. It's very subdued. It's very inward. He doesn't have a ton of dialogue, really. It's just like him emoting, and so
contemplative.
Yeah, definitely. So he's great. Like you said, the whole family dynamic, the three of them, is just so well done and so real and relatable. The scene with the gun is one of my favorite scenes in the Night movie.
I totally forgot about that when I and then saw it. Oh my gosh.
It's great. It's great score. And not a ton of effects. I mean, it's like like you're saying, the superpowers are kind of like they don't require any like big special effects work or anything. So it's just all, again, it feels very grounded and real, which is great. So excellent choice. It's right in there. It's in my top 10 as well. So great pick. All right, moving on to my number 2. My number 2 pick is another Joe Johnston movie. It's not Captain America. It is The Rocketeer.
Yes.
Rocketeer is so much fun. This was released June 21st, 1991. $35 million budget. Only grossed 46. So this is another one of these that kind of bombed, but over time has gained a cult following, of which I am a member. the Rocketeer cult. Hour 48
Yes.
minute runtime. Joe Johnston, again, he's one of my favorite directors. He has such a great style. He you know, the reason they hired him for Captain America was because of this, right? I mean, it's
Mm.
that whole kind of like 1930s, 40s era,
Mm.
fighting Nazis. You know, it's like
Yeah.
that whole thing. But
Classic stuff.
yeah, all the classic, you know, kind of pulpy hero stuff. That's what he does really well. But he's directed so many great movies: Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, Honey, I Shrunk the
Mm.
Kids. There's a lot of great films that he's made over the years. So yeah, this is just a great, fun, old school throwback movie. Again, like Zorro, a great blend of humor, action, romance. It's got all those elements that you could want in a kind of just fun blockbuster movie. Billy Campbell, I really like as
Mm.
Cliff Secord. I think I don't know why he never like took off as a big actor. I really think he's good here.
Yeah.
And he's got that charm and the wit. But he's like you were mentioning earlier, a reluctant hero. He really just
Mhm.
has this kind of like he's thrown into the situation. He wants nothing to do with it really, but he has to. He kind of has to step up and become the hero and save the day. You know, so I like that whole element. Jennifer Connelly is fantastic in this. I like the whole angle where she's, you know, this another unique thing about it is all set in Los Angeles, kind of like the film
Yeah.
industry, Hollywood, that whole thing. So that gives it a unique setting as well. And her whole angle of she's, you know, trying to be an actress, and Timothy Dalton's character, who is this big popular actor who secretly is this Nazi spy. And so I just like that whole angle of it. I think it really works. Alan Arkin is a great kind of mentor figure / comic relief. He does a
Mhm.
really good job there. So yeah, just really, really fun. This one, you know, again, early 90s. So this is before Jurassic Park, right? Like revolutionized CG
Mm.
effects and the whole thing. But Joe Johnston utilized every effects tool at his disposal. He has a lot of history with ILM. He worked on the original
Mm.
Star Wars films. He worked
Oh,
on the
wow.
original Indiana Jones movies as an effects guy. And
Oh,
so that's
cool.
his background. And so he really knows how to utilize effects well and knows how to blend them with the practical and the digital and all that stuff. And they use all kinds of different techniques for this movie
Mm.
that were just a lot of fun. The 90s is kind of like the last true like practical effects era before CG took over. So this
Yeah.
and Zorro are both have a special place in my heart. It's got a great just sense of fun and excitement to it. It has a quick pace, you know, great mix of characters, great relationships, dynamics, and things like that. Great big ending, you know, on the Zeppelin. You know, I like that whole sequence as well. It's just a lot of fun. So this is another one that's to me infinitely rewatchable. I've seen it so
Mhm.
many times and never get tired of it. So that ended up at number 2.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. I think between like this one, The Mask of Zorro, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think are like the I don't know if I'd say Holy Trinity, but
Yeah, sure.
like they're like the like action adventure hero,
Yes.
like they're like where every element of the movie is done fantastically. Like I think each of them are like typify that and yeah, especially the Rocketeer here. I love this one. My dad first showed it to us on DVD. I don't know how old we were, but it's always a good time when you're versing Nazis.
Yes.
It gives it that, and I think maybe I don't know if it's because of Raiders, but I feel like at least for me, it's because of Raiders. Like that's the grounding point, and then so anything that kind of comes into that circle, it just automatic gets like bonus points as just being automatically cool and fun, and like the whole like you got the Nazis, you got the gangsters, you know, you got like all sorts of sides on this with the big giant guy who's like legit scary.
Yes.
And yeah, even some horror in here with how he dismantles, I'll say, his opponents. But yeah, and then just I don't know, it's such a simple design for the Rocketeer. Like it's just a helmet, jetpack, and then the flight leather jacket. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like if this movie was a little more famous, that people would say it was iconic.
Yeah.
Because I think localized, I think it is iconic, but I don't think the general populace knows about it enough to say it's globally recognizably iconic.
Yeah.
But I think it has the potential for it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great point about the design. That costume design is just It's perfect. It's so
Mhm.
good, so good. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus right now, so you haven't checked it out. Definitely give it a watch. All right, you want to give us your number two?
So my number two is going to be Batman Begins. And I know we talked about this a little bit on the recent podcast, but I guess the reason I picked it is because I think at this point I had seen Michael Keaton's Batman and probably Batman Returns and Batman Forever. I think that's where I stopped. I think I at least have seen Batman. Again, that one, he's kind of already the hero. He's already Batman. We don't really see it. All I really knew about Batman's origin was kind of like what we see in BVS, like just the synopsis, the general points. So the reason I picked this one for me is it just like blew my mind on totally expounding upon his origin story. And like I said, I don't know the comics, so I don't know how much of this is Nolan making it up with like all of the League of Shadows and all that kind of stuff, or how much he's just like incorporating different ideas into his Batman origin. But it's really cool. Like the other reason I picked this one is just because it's like it just takes the already epic coolness of Batman to just another level with everything we see here. Like the fact that just like in the beginning where he's already, and I like this told through flashbacks too, as we see snippets of that, like where he's like sort of trying to fight in his own way, but then he's like trying to figure out how to fight, and he's not honed, and he doesn't have a direction. And then we kind of see Liam Neeson's character come along and give him that in the League of Shadows. And so that whole sequence and everything involving that is really cool. And like just like not knowing any of that and then coming in and then like having BVS, the BVS condensed version be like all for Batman, and then his origin, and then except he is Batman after that, and then you just see all this, and it's just like really cool. And of course Liam Neeson is awesome, so anything he does is just adds a layer like of gravitas and like epicness or whatever. He's trained so many heroes. But just even the formation of the Batcave, like there's so much origin stuff in this movie that's just so cool. Like the use, and like because in Keaton's Batman, you see the Batcave, it's attached to the house, but like everything else, it's already there. So in this one, you're like, I guess at the end of the movie, they're just starting to make it, but you see that they were down there using it, and like the piano thing and like all that stuff. It's just really cool to see him become Batman and the tumbler. And like, I don't think there's one thing in this movie that isn't cool, especially with Batman. And then just taking it a little bit like Unbreakable, takes it into a more grounded reality, if you will, and just kind of like saying how like the tumbler is that's for making bridges, like giving things real reasons for existing was really cool. So that's why I picked this one.
All right, so yeah, great pick for your number two, Batman Begins. That is one that I remember watching. I remember a friend got it on DVD after it came out, and watching it and just kind of being blown away by, like you're saying, how gritty and real it was. It just felt like this was really happening to a guy. And Batman's one of the most versatile superheroes, right? Because he doesn't have superpowers, so you can make something like this that's super grounded and real. Yet he doesn't feel out of place in something like Justice League, where he's like fighting aliens and stuff, stuff like that too. So he's a great character. Obviously, he's one of the oldest superheroes, other than Superman. He is the oldest. So he's been around a long time. There's been so many different iterations of him. So yeah, I like Batman Begins a lot. I think it does have some weaknesses for me. The action sequences aren't quite as good as some of the other Batman movies. I don't care for the tumbler, honestly. I think it's kind of weird that a ninja has a big tank. It kind of defeats the purpose of being a ninja, but it's fun. It's fun. They have fun with it. They do a good job with it. Like you were saying earlier, Nolan's insistence on practical effects is so appreciated. And there's a lot of model work in that movie and really incredible stuff. So yeah, big fan of the entire Dark Knight trilogy. So yeah, I'm glad it's on the list. Time to move on to my number one pick, my favorite superhero origin movie. It is Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Wow, this movie just blew me away when I first saw it in theaters. I got to go to an early showing. I think it was Walmart had some kind of like special preview thing.
Oh, wow.
So I got a ticket, and I got to see it like, a day before everyone else. And went with my dad to see it. We just had a great time. It was such a good movie. Even on that first watch, it just really
Mm.
was striking, kind of what Snyder did with this character, who I grew up with. You know, like I said, the animated series, the Christopher Reeve films that I mentioned earlier. I've seen, I think, every iteration of the character on screen, whether it be on TV or in movies. Smallville's my favorite TV
Mm.
show. You know, so really just kind of surprised by this take because it was very modern. The actual, it's funny we just mentioned that in Begins. David Goyer, who wrote the Dark Knight trilogy co-wrote it with Chris Nolan, they came up with this idea for Man of Steel while they were making The Dark Knight Rises, and
Mm.
so they kind of wrote the story. Goyer wrote the screenplay, and Nolan handpicked Zack Snyder to direct. He had, of
That's
course,
so
at this
cool.
point done Dawn of the Dead and 300 and Watchmen, so he was a pretty well-known director, and he took the reins and just did a great job with it. It was released on June 14th, 2013. Has a budget of 258 million, so big budget, and every penny is on screen. I see every bit of that budget on the screen. It's just incredible. The worlds they created with Krypton, and
Mm.
the effects of the costumes, and the ships, and the superpowers, and just all this incredible stuff that they did. It's definitely all on screen. Gross 668 million. Runtime of 2 hours and 23 minutes. It just flies by, pun intended. It just it goes by so quickly. And
Mm.
the film just has a great cast as well. Obviously, Henry Cavill, very much an inward portrayal, like kind of like we were talking about with Bruce Willis and Unbreakable.
Mhm.
It's all very introspective and contemplative. He just does a great job. Amy Adams, of course, is wonderful as Lois. She captures that kind of feisty journalistic spirit, investigative reporter. I love that she discovers who he is before anyone else. There's no secret identity here, really. I mean, at the end, like we get that set up, but she already knows. Like it's not a secret to her, and that's just so great. The dynamic of that relationship is so unique in this film from what
Mm.
we're typically used to with that relationship, and so I thought that worked brilliantly. Michael Shannon, can't say enough great things about him. Just such an intelligent actor, very menacing, very authoritative, perfect casting for General Zod. He does such a great job, has such a great motivation and point of
Mhm.
view, for the villain, I think is so important. Although he's not really sympathetic, but you get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
So just really well done on that level. Diane Lane, of course, as Martha, and Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent. They just again feel very like salt of the earth, real couple, just normal people having to raise this alien son who can do all these things that they don't understand, and they just portray that so well. Of course, Russell Crowe, I have to mention, and Isla
Mm.
Zur as Jor and Laura L on Krypton. All their scenes are so well done. It actually opens with them. I like this is very much an origin. I mean, we get his birth. The movie starts with his birth, and so you don't get much more of an origin than that. And
Nope.
so yeah, all of it's just handled super well. I found out some interesting casting here. Gal Gadot was actually originally offered the role of Feora before they found out that she was pregnant, so she couldn't do it, and she ended up, of
Huh.
course, getting cast as Wonder Woman in the sequel. So
Wow.
she was it was inevitable. She was
Step
going to
up
be,
for her.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was always destined to be in a DC movie, and it ended up happening. So,
That's
and
Zod's compatriot.
correct. Yeah, his second in
Okay.
command. Yeah, played by, I think her name is Anshe Trow, who ended up playing that role.
And she did a
Also,
good job with that.
oh, she did great. She did great. Yeah, she did such a good job. I really like her character as well. Very straightforward character. Gets orders and she follows them out. Another bit of casting is Connie Nielsen, who ended up playing Hippolyta, right? Wonder Woman's mom.
Hmm.
She was cast as Laura L. And so two bit of Wonder Woman actresses were going to be a Man of Steel, but obviously didn't end up working out, and they ended up
Interesting.
being cast in that movie. So really cool, seamless visual effects here. I mean, really just outstanding. I think this is like the level movies need to hit. If they're going to do a lot of CGI, and there's a lot of CGI in this movie, it needs to be at this level. It really needs to look this good because it's just so good. Again, seamless. The costume, a lot of the Kryptonians, their full costumes are CGI. You know,
Wow.
so of course, all the stuff on
Wow.
Krypton, it just looks amazing.
Oh,
It looks like
oh
such
my
a
gosh.
real place. So yeah, excellent job there. I like the use of superpowers, right? So we talk about that a
Mhm.
lot with superhero movies, like how to make it fresh, how to make it look unique and grounded and real. This is obviously a very grounded, realistic take on Superman as a character, and so the way they use, you know, his strength, obviously, his speed, I think, is depicted so well, better than ever before. His heat
Mm.
vision too. I think his heat vision just
That's
looks
yeah.
so powerful and just like
Mhm.
he's unleashing the sun, right? And we know he's powered by the sun, right? So it makes a lot of sense. I also like though how he could use it delicately when he cauterizes her bleed. When Lois gets attacked in the
Mm.
fortress, he cauterizes it. And we
I
don't really
didn't notice
see it
that.
happen, but yeah, he says, "Hey, I'm going to have to cauterize this, or you're going to bleed out." And his eyes light up, and she screams, and it's just a really good moment. That
Huh.
again, a use of his powers that we don't typically see.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like all of that, this one again, it starts with his birth. He crashes on Earth, and then we flash forward to him grown up already, right? And the oil rig scene and all that.
Mm.
And then as he's kind of wandering, he's a wanderer, right? He's like he doesn't know where he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to do. He's trying to kind of find out who he is and what his role's supposed to be in society. And as he's seeing things, like he'll see a school bus and it'll flash back to him as a kid, you know, on a school bus. And so we're getting these flashbacks to him as a younger character, as he's learning about his superpowers, as he's dealing with his parents. We get the death of Jonathan Kent, all these things. So it's, again, a nonlinear narrative, a lot like that in the beginning. It's set up very similarly to that,
Mm.
where we're getting those flashbacks. And I'm sure that had to do with the fact that Nolan was involved. You know, he likes doing that type of thing. So all that's very effective, though. But what was interesting is I listened to the commentary, and Snyder said he originally edited the film so that it was in chronological order. So we saw him crash, and then we
Mm.
saw him as a young adult, and then we saw him as a teenager, and then, you know, it kind of like
Yeah.
continued to grow up throughout the movie. But it was always written and intended to be out of order. But he just wanted to make sure it would work if it was in order as well. And he said it
That
did,
makes
but
sense.
obviously we haven't seen that version of the movie. But it would be kind of fun to watch. So just a great take on Clark Kent, great take on his origin. I like the whole discussion he has with the priest about taking the leap of faith. You know, because he's seen the worst of humanity wandering the planet for the
Mm.
past, you know, 30 some odd years. He's seen the worst of humanity, and he's not sure if he can trust them, but, you know, he does take the leap of faith. He becomes this hero that
Mm.
inspires the people of Earth, and he defends them. And so all of it to me just works out so well. You know, they explore morality here in a very effective way, force him to make difficult decisions, which I think is important in a superhero movie to do. And so, yeah, it deals with a lot of kind of heavier themes. It's taken very seriously. There is humor throughout it, but it is a much more dramatic kind of superhero film. It really
Yeah.
takes the characters and the whole mythology very seriously. And that's what Snyder does well. I mean, he does it really well in Watchmen and his other movies like 300. But here, I think it's probably most effective because I think what he does with the characters, he makes them so relatable. And he
Yeah.
really just makes us kind of understand what it's like being an outsider, you know, which we all feel at one point or another in our lives, but it's just handled really well here. The Christ allegory is very apparent as well. I mean, there's certain shots of him that are very clearly, you know, depicting him as a Christ-like figure, and that's kind of always been the intention of Superman, going back to his original creation by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who were both Jewish kids who grew up with the stories of Moses and that kind of thing, and you know, put him on a ship and send him to Earth is a lot like Moses going down the river, right? So there's all these kind of parallels, biblical parallels throughout
Mm.
Superman's history, and that's not lost here, which I'm very glad for. So
Yeah.
all in all, just has a great look to it, a great feel, beautiful cinematography, incredible score. Of course, I can't not mention that Hans Zimmer score, which is one of my favorites of all time. It really just has a great ending too. I love that ending scene in the Daily Planet. It just kind of is a perfect send off and you know, launching point for the rest of the
Mm.
character. And so yeah, big fan of Snyder as a director, and the whole Snyder verse. What he did with Batman v Superman and Justice League was great. And you know, hopefully we get more one day. I'm still still all about restoring the Snyderverse, but it probably won't happen for a while. So yeah, but the fact that we got this movie, I'm very happy because this is definitely one of the best comic book movies ever.
The first time I saw it, I liked it, but didn't love it. And then sort of after you reawakened me to how good BVS is, it just kind of like unfolded from there. And so like I love this movie now. It was almost in my top 5. It was this close. It was actually between this and Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse and boosted up to number 4. But yeah, it was almost in there. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. And like every point you mentioned is so true. Like that opening scene, oh my gosh, the whole sequence in the beginning. Like I forgot it was there at one point, and then when I went back to watch it, I was like just blown away by it. But something when you mentioned like the Christ allegory, something I didn't realize until just now when you were talking about it was like oh, he goes away for a while and then like he comes back, and when he like starts being Superman is like he's in his 30s. Yes. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder if that was intentional. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But yeah, I think the only thing that sticks with me about this movie is the death of Jonathan Kent. Yeah. Like that's the only negative I have. Like, sure. Would you not save your dad? Like, I think you would. So that's I don't buy that.
Right.
I don't care for that scene, but everything else in the movie is fantastic, and it's just really cool. Like you said, with its grounding, because like obviously it's different than Batman, so it's not there is powers, there is flying, there is fantastical things going on, but and it's probably a credit to Nolan and Goyer, like it is still incredibly grounded even despite those things. And like you were said, it's like just like with the performances and the understated subtlety of Cavill's performance, and just like the emotions and just the emotional core of this film is really, really strong. And I think that's also in part credit to Zimmer with his score. It just really just like, it kind of just sits there and it makes it really powerful. And pairing that with Snyder's imagery and cinematography and the shots, and oh my gosh, it just makes it so beautiful. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie. It's so good.
Yeah, it is. And I will say about the Jonathan thing, that was on subsequent viewings after that initial watch, that was the thing that stood out to me too, is something that I'm not sure if they handled that right. I think over time though, and especially after becoming a parent, the lengths you'll go to protect your children is very apparent. Now on Clark's side, I get it, like he should have done something, but you have to remember his whole life, his dad is telling him this. People aren't ready. You can't reveal yourself. This is gonna, it's gonna change the world. And thinking about it now, looking back on what we saw with what happened in Batman v Superman, when people do find out that this guy exists, it does cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Not just for Clark, but for literally the entire planet. And so if he had revealed himself at that young of an age, I think he's supposed to be like 18 in that scene, would he have been able to handle it as well? Definitely not, I don't think.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting what if, like what if Clark did save his dad? What would have happened? Like, I don't know, maybe we would have gotten our evil Superman like Elseworld story. I don't know. But it is a scene that it does stand out to me still. But now I'm on the other side. I actually really like that scene. So
I think it could be too, even like, I know that like there's like when you see something and you're like, you have that like internal conflict of should I, shouldn't I, and then the moment passes. Yeah. And I think that could be one of those things as well. I wonder, because you mentioned that Snyder did a chronological edit. I wonder if, to me anyway, if this scene would play better not having seen him be Superman yet, not having seen him do anything super. Right. I wonder if it'd be more believable if it plays out that way. Because I don't think we would have seen him do anything yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we would have seen him save the bus.
Oh, that's right.
That's when they have the whole conversation of like, you can't do this. This is
like, and he doesn't like really fly in that scene. I don't think he just lifts the bus out.
Right.
So exactly. I think that would be interesting to see that cut.
That's a good thought. Interesting. All right. We're on to your number one. What is
yes. So my number one is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire.
Great.
It's such a good movie. To me, this is It's one of my first superhero movies, honestly, especially live action movies. And I had grown up enough or around like superheroes to know, like, like I said with Batman, like the general origin story or whatever. So like guy gets bit by spider, which actually I don't even know if I knew that. I just knew Spider-Man existed and he was Peter Parker. But so because I didn't know anything, I guess this kind of like became my idealized, I don't know if that's the right word, but version of Spider-Man. Like, so everything is like this is like the iconic, this is like the way to do it or whatever for me. So like between like I would say even organic web. I know it's not the original in the comics, but it makes more sense and I like it better. But like even like Uncle Ben and Aunt May, I think they're the best ones. J. Jonah Jameson is obviously so iconic. They kept him for every other appearance of his character. Obviously, with great power comes great responsibility. Is that from the comics, or did that originate in this movie?
I think that was a comic line. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Stan Lee.
Okay, so Stanley wrote one of the greatest lines in the history of ever,
Yeah.
which appeared in this movie, and thus they couldn't say it the same way in any other movie. And then obviously Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. Like, I don't know, there's just so much about this movie has just become so iconic and so, I don't know, it's just so well done. I don't know, to me, it's just like the ultimate classic Spider-Man origin story. And so everything we've seen subsequently, either like Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, which Tom Holland's is cool because it's like 3 movies to get to the origin story, and other things like Spider-Verse, like they, at least to me, they all come back to like this one as being like the foundational aspect of the grounding as far as what I'm comparing it to, or different things like that. It was kind of funny. Something that blew my mind as a kid, because like a lot of the good guy, like superheroes, good guy, bad guy stuff I'd seen was like your stereotypical mustache twirling villain, or there wasn't like a lot of sympathetic or like villains with good plans, I guess. Like a lot of it is just like, like your comic-y cartoon fare, or we're going to blow this up or what have you. So it was really interesting to me, which I'm sure this wasn't new to adults, but at least to me as a kid when I saw it. And then, you got the scene with the goblin mask on the chair and Willem Dafoe, and they're like talking, and he's like, go after his heart. We hit his heart or whatever. And I was like, and my mind just was like blown as a kid. I was like, that's genius. Why has nobody done that? Well, and I'm sure people have. But like as a kid who hadn't seen any of that stuff, like that was like, they should do that. That's a genius plan. And so, of course, that becomes iconic, and everything that follows suit with that becomes iconic as well. And like even the choice scene at the very end where he's like, you have to choose between saving Mary Jane, the squirrel you love, and then saving a tram full of men and women and kids. I think it was mostly kids, but because that was the first time I'd seen that too, the presentation of a choice, and it doesn't look like you can do both. So what are you going to do? And so I really liked that aspect as well. And so I think partially just because where I came into seeing this, and then where this movie is in like superhero history, I guess, as far as like the movies, I think those are the 2 things that just make it stand out to me so much, as just being like such a powerful film, but also a powerful origin story for Peter Parker.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Yeah, that's such an iconic film. Like you said, it really kicked off the new wave of comic book films after it kind of died out in the 90s. That and the original X-Men came out in the early 2000s, and just hasn't died down since, really. So yeah, it's pretty incredible to see what Sam Raimi did. He really he injects his own style into it, but he very much tries to make it as accessible as possible for the widest audience possible, because that's the character, right? I mean, it's a kid-friendly comic book thing, and I can definitely tell he's influenced by Richard Donner's Superman. I think I've heard him say that before. You even have the scene of him like opening the shirt.
Yeah,
he's got the costume underneath. So those little homages are fun, and yeah, like you said, casting's on point all the way around. It's just a really solid, well-made movie. Great score as well.
Danny Elfman.
Yeah, Elfman's score is great. And good use of effects too. I mean, this was early days CGI, and they're using quite a bit of it, but not a ton, not overdoing it, using it only when they need to. And so, yeah, it's great. When this, in my head canon, Peter B. Parker from Spider-Verse is Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, that's it's like you get to see what happens after Spider-Man 3 with his Cullen kind of backstory and everything. So yeah, it's really good. It really, like you said, it stands up to the test of time, which is tough for a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Particularly, I feel like early 2000s, some of those comic book movies really don't hold up very well at all. But this one really does because it's kind of timeless. You know, it's got that very timeless feel. They don't really lean into like this is the early 2000s. It's more like just a fun kind
Here's
of
the pager or cell phone or something.
yeah,
You know, they don't.
right, exactly.
There's nothing they tie it to for dating.
Exactly. Not a lot of pop culture references or anything like that. It's just really well done. So yeah, excellent choice. Spider-Man, great.
So I have a question actually. When you mentioned Danny Elfman's score, would you say, or would it be too far to say, like the way people looked at Michael Keaton's Batman, not Michael Keaton's Batman himself, but the movie, the way people looked at that and the score and like as like a thing, kind of like people like look the way that people talk about and look at Top Gun or whatever. Like, do you think that like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is the couple decades later, different generations version?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think that like I said, X-Men came out around the same time. X-Men was a big hit, but it wasn't like a huge mainstream thing because they took it a lot darker with X-Men, right?
Yeah.
It was like very gritty and kind of grounded.
Whereas, and a lot more drama, less hero, superpower.
Right. Yes. And Spidey was more of the kind of colorful, fun, more comedic like take on the comic book genre. So yeah, I would definitely say Spider-Man is comparable to the original Batman, and even I would maybe even go so far as to say the original Superman, as far as just like a big event film that like everyone went and saw, loved it, made tons of money. They made tons of sequels, and so yeah, I would definitely say it's our generation's Batman. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it would be our generation.
Right, exactly. All right, well, that is it. That is our top 5 superhero origin movies. Tough list to make, but it was a lot of fun talking about those. Make sure you leave your top 5 superhero origin stories in the comments below. Also, share the video, like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. I'm going to leave a link to our Letterboxd accounts. I'll also leave a link to Josh's channel. He's got his own channel, Film Seed. You can go to and check out now. Thanks, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you. My absolute pleasure.
Great. Thank you again all for being here. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to talk all about our favorite racing movies. Gran Turismo is in theaters, so we're going to talk our favorite racing movies. That should be a lot of fun. Make sure you join us on the channel. Check out all the playlists. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.